Hello everyone, welcome back to another Preppers Fireside. We are joined tonight not by the people on the intro because I was too last minute to change the intro, but Hawkins is with us. How you doing, Hawkins?
Yeah, good mate, thank you. Yourself?
Good to see your face, mate. Good to see your face. Brian, how you doing?
Yeah, good mate. How's things?
All right. Yeah, just busy. Alan, you've joined us last minute. Thank you very much for filling in. How you doing?
Excellent. Thanks for letting me join, Mike.
You're all right. You're right. You've done us a favor. You filled a gap. It was too much Brian on one level, so you know, we might need a translator.
Demonetize the stream.
Well, I don't. Yeah, try not to monetize them at the start anyway. So it's all free at the moment. So that doesn't mean you've got free reign. Welcome to everybody in the chat. It's great to see so many green names in there. Anarchy, Evil Girl. Also, loads of you in there. I can't acknowledge everyone. It's just gone too fast already. 87 people in here already. I can't acknowledge Miss Worm, though, in there, our chief moderator with Zebra Prep there, helping out, keeping you all in check. So make sure you do as you're told, or she will get the broomstick out. Right. Tonight, we are going to talk about MAGs, mutual assistance groups, networking, everything to do with that, which is actually good that you've come on, Alan, because we mentioned that you had a lone wolf perspective at the moment the other day, so it's good to get different angles of this. So that's the kind of first question I'm going to throw around the panel. Despite what your ambitions are and what you'd like to have, if it happens tomorrow, are you a lone wolf, or do you have a mag ready to go, Hawkins?
It depends what it is, I suppose. If it was something that locked you down geographically, I've got one friend in the village who used to be a neighbour who is of a very similar sort of mindset as me. So he would be instant mag, and families would come together and look out for each other, and then everyone else who preps or knows of my prepping and does a little bit else, they're all an hour and a half drive away. So yeah, I'm not a lone wolf, but I'm not where I'd like to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then there's you lot.
There's us lot, which are even further away. Brian, what's your situation at the moment? Not where you'd like to be, but what's it at now?
If things went peaked on tomorrow, I would have my family and my brother's family immediately, because him and myself are very closely aligned on what we would do and how we prep. So,
yeah. Alan, world survivalist. How about you? I know you're not essentially a prepper as such. You count yourself more of a survivalist, hence the name. But do you have a mag, or do you want to have a mag? Is that something you've looked at?
No, I mean, I'm very much definitely a lone wolf status at the moment, I would say. There are people, of course, that I know who have certain skills. You know, I've got like a father-in-law who's good at joinery, and I've got a friend who's good at mechanics and so on. And those are the people I would immediately make contact with if there was like a national issue that took place where we could collectively get together and do stuff. But it's by no means formed into some sort of group or anything like that. I actually joked on the Discord chat beforehand that I didn't even know what MAG stood for. I had to look that up.
No, I mean,
I'm working on it.
It's valid, and a lot of people probably be in a similar sort of situation. And I think a lot of preppers talk about mags like we've all got them and we're all fully trained and everyone knows exactly what to do when it hits the fan. But I think it's not the case for a lot of people. Alan, do you think mags for a lot of people is a pipe dream? It's just an ambition that they'll never achieve because they don't get themselves out there?
I suppose it depends on how much of the definition you really play into. If you're imagining a scenario where it's a bit Mad Max, where you're in a fenced off community where you're all working as a little collective fighting some sort of outside force, I think that's a bit of a pipe dream to some extent. What I think is more realistic is people in crises tend to get together anyway and then form groups based on the pre-existing cultural groups that were there to begin with. You know,
Right.
whether that's around a community in your town, or a religious group, or just your work colleagues, or whatever, or your family or whatever. You know, I say I'm lone wolf, but I don't live alone. I have a young family and a partner, so that would be okay to begin with, and that would
Yeah.
friends, and then something hopefully then would come from that.
Brian, the concept of a mag as a group of middle-aged men training in the forest that some preppers would have it believe, is that a pipe dream? Is it just playing soldiers?
I think it's a group of people with a common interest that leads them down a certain path, which is fine. How you prep and I prep and Hawkins prep and Alan preps might not be the same, but it's what we believe to be the best for us, and that's just the same for them. I would like to think we've got the beginnings of MAG when you started the Discord group. It's just a widely distributed, it's a widely spread MAG.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Hawkins, mags realistic? Do you think people forming mags is a realistic concept for them to do?
Yes. And I think the more we network through this channel and through Discord, I think I alluded to the other night, I've got like a friend who's, 8 miles away that I met on Meshtastic, who's a prepper. We chat a lot, met up. There's another guy who's coming to the Discord who I'm probably going to meet tomorrow night, actually, at the local sporting venue. And again, I suppose he's the next person you'd think of as a mag if you get on and everything, you know what I mean? Meet in a communal place, check each other out, see if you like each other, chat a bit more on Discord. But we wouldn't have met or got talking to each other if it wasn't for Discord and this channel. So yeah, I suppose it's only early days yet. There's still more chance of localish people joining the Discord and getting to know each other. The zones work great, don't they, to be honest, for putting people in touch with each other. So.
Is the concept, Hawkins, of a post-apocalyptic survival group? People instantly think of things like Walking Dead and stuff like that. Is it one step towards the extreme? Is it something casual preppers shouldn't even think about?
I think the thought of a Walking Dead-esque apocalyptic sort of banding together in a prison is very too far.
May as well throw my plans out. You just give it to everyone.
However, like I live on a new build estate, which is kind of like one in, one road in and out sort of thing. And if something was to go wrong, I'd have to band together with everybody on this estate and bring them together and do what you can, and all for one and one for all, isn't it? You group together. So that level, I think, is perfectly reasonable. But yeah, I think.
I mean, that's after the fact, right? So people would be much more easily convinced at that stage. Brian, is it extreme to try and form a mag at this stage while we're in peace times? I mean, it's great. I think the Discord and everything we've built together on here so far has been great for community and for networking, but it's not essentially a mag. We've not got like a solid plan where everyone gets to Brian's house quickly, that sort of thing.
Well, did you get the invite for that, Mike?
I didn't know. No, everyone else is going, all right.
Well done, Hawkins. You've blown it.
Sorry, mate.
But is it a step towards the extreme? Are we going to turn off a lot of potential new preppers if we talk about things like that?
But it's a logical step if something went wrong. All we're doing with Discord, all we're doing with the channels, yours, mine, everybody else's, is to bounce ideas about. And the wide mag that I'll call Discord, for want of a better term, I would like to hope it would coalesce into a more clustered mag, FSHTF at the fan, right? At the moment, there's no need for a condensed mag because we can accomplish a lot of goals by talking to one another through social media and electronic mediums, but it gives you the option to meet up. So it's a start.
Yeah. Alan, you've got people you can call on. That's essentially is a mini mag in that kind of situation. But to set it up now and start telling them the plans now, would you feel like that would be a bit extreme? Would you wait for something to happen?
No, I mean, I think it really depends on how it's defined. I mean, one of the things that I'm noticing, something of an outsider looking at these terms, mags and things like that. To me, there's a very clear distinction between a collective group of strangers with particular skills and interests getting together to form a bit of an information network or a little bit of a readiness community. And then if you look at some of the more North American channels, what you effectively have there are militias, groups of people coming together and forming militarized civilian type groups almost, and you can see that with religious organizations or like biker groups or these kind of things. Once you start going into that sort of territory, I think then it has to be very defined exactly what it is you're looking to do, and it's much harder to get across to people then that that's a good idea for something to join. If somebody came to me and says, join my biker group, we're all like-minded and we all do great things together, you own a motorbike, let's go and do stuff, I'm a little bit hesitant based on, well, but what's your objective? Are you a friendly biker group, or are you the Hells Angels?
I want to practice my skills, not go full Waco.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you want to make sure you're not joining a cult, which I'm not putting it down, and I'm not making.
You're already in, Alan. You're already in. There's no trying to get out of it now. You're already in, Alan.
Yeah.
Drink the Kool-Aid, buy a T-shirt, make a donation, all that stuff. So, training-wise, Brian, is it something you'd consider if you started to get like 3 or 4 people that were well on board for the doing stuff? Would you think about doing some training, let's go and do a weekend away together? Let's see how we'd do this. Let's see how we'd bug out. Is it a realistic prospect to do peace times?
Yes, if it fits in with your prep and plan. I don't anticipate bugging out into the woods as being anything other than a 3-day extension of your death, unfortunately. Personal opinion, I know that's not what folk want to hear, but I still enjoy camping, kayaking, outdoor stuff. But we do practice preps and stuff now. When we're doing the Scottish meet, that's a coalescence of a mag for Discord, and other people have met up with some of their folks as well. Hawkins
in my particular zone, yeah,
because their hobbies align. They get a good vibe from them on chat. It might not work out when you get meet face to face, but it's a start. But training, we're always training because I'm asking you for ideas, you're asking me for ideas, and then we're going away and practicing, and then we're looking at other people's videos on demonstrations, how to build things, how to fix things. So I think we're always training.
Yeah. Let's quickly go to the chat. I'll come to you two in a second because I've completely ignored it for a while. Mel said it's difficult being a lone wolf. It is, definitely. Amphia said being part of a mag would be similar to section fighting sniper procedures, with at least liked being told to stand up first to try and flush out the sniper. Well, I mean, how you run that is up to you. If you have some cannon fodder in your, mag, that's up to you. Would the zones be utilized in some way to build mags? They already have been started to Snapdragon, and that's why me and some of the several people from the same zone as me all met up already for the first time. So yeah, it's there to utilize as a resource for you guys to speak to each other to form them. There's no point me trying to form your mag if you don't like the guy or if you don't live close enough to be realistic. So, Band again says, Mike, I think people need shaken up. They need to be told the horrors of SHTF. Watch Threads. Question, would it be beneficial to try and get a Discord room for members' locations, i.e. West Midlands, London, might help members be more cohesive? We have zones, Brum. I'll send you a message in the Discord and tell you all about it after, but it's part of the members section on there. The Discord's bigger than you think. On the zones on Discord, how do we find out who is in the same zone as us? Is there a separate chat for each zone? Yes, again, it's part of the members section. Every zone has got its own little chat area. So check out the rules on the Discord. Make sure you're active in the public Discord area for a while, and then send me an email with the information that we request, and it'll go to a leadership panel and we'll approve or deny you depending on what you like. Brian, when's your solo live stream likely to be? Says Jay.
Probably Thursday this week, I'm thinking.
Right, there you go. Thursday. Nobody else schedule anything for Thursday. That's the place to be. Cool. I'll try and keep up with the chat best I can, guys. It's a nightmare. Brian proved how hard it is on his first ever live stream to keep up with the chat. So that's why I ask either capitals, or if you do use a super chat, it is appreciated, and it automatically stars it for me, like Brum is showing there. I'm not sure if that's a chat or a little emoji, but I can't see it. But thank you very much for the pound there, Brum. It really is appreciated. It makes up for Brian's swearing. So yeah, training. Hawkins, training. I mean, we all have hobbies and go to certain sports clubs and things like that. So we train our personal skills, but training with other people as part of a mag, is it something you'd consider?
I would. I don't know anybody who takes prepping as seriously as myself who would participate. Sorry, apart from present.
There's 133 people in the chat.
Right here.
I don't know anybody personally in my real life, shall we say, who takes prepping as seriously as me yet, because I've not met you in person yet, Brian. So, but yeah, I'd love to. Obviously, family commitments and littling and all that comes a nightmare, as everyone well aware. But yeah, I mean, I go camping every now and again with some of the lads who I would consider my mag, and we do wild camping and throw the backpacks on and go up to the lakes for the night. And
that's it. That is essentially training. You don't have to label it some sort of like day X. I mean,
it's a bit loose with training because some of them actually take like deep fat fryers, chip pans, and we like have like literally like deep fried chips with steak on top of the mountain. So
on a backpack.
Yeah, honestly, mate, some of them are mental. One of the guys is a brother-in-law of one of the lads, and he literally takes cast iron pans and stuff up on his back. He doesn't know what like lightweight camping gear is. His backpack will weigh like 40 kilos. It's mental.
Nice. Is he like this? Is he built like a brick?
He is pretty big, mate. He is pretty big.
Yeah. Alan, your intake on this is interesting because, I mean, you've got kayaks, I think, behind you. I don't know if they are kayaks or what they're actually called, or if I'm just making myself look stupid, but you're into all that kind of skill side of things, being a survivalist. Would you take that to the next level and start training a few people, bringing them out, doing stuff with them?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it starts from home. See, something... I consider myself largely an outdoorsman. You know, I've done some whitewater kayaking, hunting, fishing, camping, all this kind of stuff. That this is part of being a survivalist. My family at home, my partner, I have a young son. We will do. We go camping every year. You know, a big camping trip. And the way I'm subtly training them for if bugging out is something that has to take place, as those camping trips are, you know, sort of on the fly. It's like, we're going now. You know, there's
get your stuff, grab a bag.
Get your stuff, let's go. And of course, it's really left down to me to gather all the stuff together and put it in the car, and then off we go. To my young son and my partner, it's just an impromptu camping trip that lasts a few days. To me, it's training me to see how well my resources are, how quickly I can get things together. But it's also allowing them to see, well, this is what we do. You know, when we first arrive, this is the location that we're going to. This is how we set it up. This is what we do for the next few days, that kind of thing. So, I mean, in theory, I could bug out with my family pretty quickly, and they wouldn't really see it as any hardship. It would just be a camping trip.
That's good. It's a really good way of doing it. I really like that. That's some great advice to take away from that. I'm going to steal that one. You know, she'll probably hate me. You forgot my straighteners or something like that. I don't know. Not the essentials. Hawkins, is it important to, you said about you've like meeting somebody from in your area for the first time coming up. Is it important to build a strong relationship with people that you could potentially be in a mag with before SHTF?
Yeah, it's only going to make your chances of survival or making life easier and more comfortable in the event of a situation, isn't it? Yeah, you're going to be much better off having those relationships beforehand than trying to build them in a stressful situation, aren't you? There's no ifs or buts about that.
Yeah, Brian, same question. Is it important to build them relationships first? Obviously, I think your immediate mag is family anyway, right?
Yes. Immediate family first, with an idea on who in your local community, what skills they've got, and who you think would be amenable to talking to should SHTF hit the fan. And also, I've got a visitor, sorry. This is him.
There you go. Part of the mag. Part of the mag.
People that would have a common skill set, or people that you think you could turn to your way of thinking, for want of a better term.
Yeah. I'll expand on it for you, Alan, so we're not just repeating the same answers. I think we're all of a similar mindset in a way. You see it in Hollywood and TV series and stuff like that. They form these mags by, oh, he's come in, let's quickly judge him. And, oh, yeah, he's fine, let's get him on board. How's that going to work? Because you'd want to be able to know if you can live with these people, right? Would you take anyone in that you didn't know, even if they had a skill set in that kind of situation?
Me personally, it would depend on what you mean by take in, you know, and what the situation was around us that was taking place. I can certainly fantasize about situations where there's certain people you would, at the gate that you've built on your street, you would literally turn them around and say, you're not welcome here, type thing. But I think in the real world, when we look at conflicts around the world, like in places like Ukraine, etc., small towns and communities did band together and do things like share resources or work out how their garbage is going to get collected in the absence of bin men and water supply and this kind of thing. And, you know, community is inevitable. Community is not something you can pick or choose. It's literally part of our species to have community. I think what we're talking about is a very focused community of people in a small group trying to deal with something. But without knowing what this something is, it's quite hard to, say what that is. You know, if it's just the power going down for a week, then I'm sure my neighbours, I wouldn't mind sort of giving some resources to my neighbours next door or whatever if I thought it was very temporary. If World War III broke out, it'd be very different.
But if it's somebody wanting to bed down on your living room floor when there's kids in the house, it's a different story completely, right?
Yeah, well, I would never allow that anyway with a complete random stranger, because I'm far more cautious about just strangers in general. But certainly, if a friend of mine came looking to do that, then yeah. But I can envision a scenario where everything's absolutely gone to hell, and you have to be wary of those friendships or distant relatives who simply know that I'm interested in the subject and therefore are looking to sort of freeload. You only have so much resources, and again, it's your zone of priority. What's your zone of priority? It starts with yourself, and then it'll extend to your children and your wife or husband or whatever after that, and then it can grow out from that.
Yeah, excellent. Let's go to the chat quickly. Polonium said, Mike, I sent you some sweets via PayPal just because. I did see that. Polonium just sent me a £50 donation to the channel. So thank you very much, Polonium. That's really appreciated. That's absolutely awesome. Mark Adventures. I'm not the only one whose pack wears more than £50. So he's happy about that he's not the odd one out there. Deep fat fries will be the new currency after SHTF, says Miss Worm. You can deal in them all you want. I'm going to have all the oil. That's the thing. I don't know how everyone can be so trusting of people. People are selfish, ruthless enough during normal times. During SHTF, it'll be 10 times that. It's a weird one because look, go around the table on this a bit. Hawkins, this statement here. It's very Hollywood, right? That people will turn on each other quickly. Yet it's also Hollywood in another way that they'll all work together. We don't know how people are going to react in truth, right?
No, I've pondered this situation a lot in my mind. Of if any sort of situation to me, I always ponder a grid down. That's for whatever reason, whether it's natural, cyber attacks, terrorists, whatever. That's the situation my head always goes to, is like a national power outage sort of event. So there's a beeping going on in the background.
I know you're receiving Morse code at the time. What's going on?
It's a plane flying overhead, actually. It beeps and tells me. How ruthless people would be. I'm also not very trusting, hence probably why I'm not showing my face, because I don't want to walk around the local village and somebody goes, oh, there's that bloody idiot from like Prepper channel that I watched. So
I've been doing this over a year 8,000 subs, and that's still not happened. Don't worry, it's very unlikely.
Well, it's only small at the moment, but as you keep growing, people go back and watch the videos. But we'll see one day. I might show my face. So yeah.
Watch out for Hawkins at the prepper meet. He'll be the only one walking around in a full balaclava for 48 hours.
I have thought about it. But yeah, what will people behave like? I don't know. Where I am, there's a fair bit of old community. Like people have lived in the village the entire life. I'm not from here, so there's going to be people with a tight knit community that I'm not a part of still. They'll probably all get on. It's not, violence isn't bad here, so
yeah, because they'll be saying you're the guy that during the drought was still watering his front lawn, so you're going to be excluded for that reason. So
yeah, they won't talk to me for wasting water. But I don't know. I've pondered the situation. What would it be like? And you do, if you ever watch them Blackout Britain things, which were very good back in the day for trying to
the Channel 4 one, that was,
trying to make your imagination run a little bit and think of what things could be like. And the American one's obviously a little bit more
extreme guns, America, yeah.
Exactly, than the British one. But it makes you wonder. It makes you think. It all depends on how long the event lasts. What happens to how hungry people become, how desperate people become. If people see me in the back garden barbecuing steaks while they're sitting there and they've just eaten the last pot noodle and you've got nothing left, that's I truly don't know though.
Steaks. Yeah. Brian, are we all going to be raging cannibals trying to kill each other? Are we all going to have the Blitz spirit sat around in a bunker singing Kumbaya? Or is it somewhere in the middle?
I think it's entirely scenario dependent.
Yeah.
Entirely scenario dependent. Again, I've kind of switched my thinking around slightly after seeing how quickly people freaked out in Spain. But it also rubber stamps my thought process as well. We don't know how people will react, but we kind of do. We really do. If they've got no information, they'll freak out because they've got nobody to follow. They've got no direction. So if they've got no direction, they hit out in all directions. If you've got enough of a skill set and enough of an idea of how things should work or how to help out, and by then helping yourself out, you can provide that direction. People will always follow a plan, even if it's a shit one. Right?
You are right, Brian.
That's a fact of life.
In what you're saying, it really does depend on how bad it gets and how quick, isn't it? And with the information, like you're saying, if the power goes off and the mobile phones are all on and everybody's communicating and on Facebook and everything, everyone's happy. If the communications go down, then obviously people are going to start wondering, things will step up a notch. But as we saw in Spain, if the water goes off next, if the power goes off 1 hour, 2 hours later, the phones go down, and then another hour or so later, the taps start running dry, then it would be significantly different. Wouldn't it?
And it depends how you do it as well. So the powers went out like Spain, and you're reasonably well prepped, and you go, well, on my radio, it says it's the country. So the rest of the world's not been in nuclear death fires. So help will come eventually. But you can then provide charging the mobile phones, charging the lights. You have got something to offer, but in return, you can then influence that to get people to do things to help you. Well, you go gather firewood and I'll charge your phone, right?
Yeah.
They'll follow an idea.
Cool. Alan, on this one, people are selfish and ruthless enough during normal times. Is that a bit pessimistic? Do you think there'll be some more community spirit?
I think some people are. And again, it really depends on the scenario that's taking place. I think in the short term, you're always going to get opportunists, and they're not the kind of people who watch these kind of channels and do these kind of things. They're usually, if you watch when riots take place or civil unrest takes place, it's young men using it as an opportunity. Usually, young men taking an opportunity to commit some sort of criminal act. They'll be in gangs with their friends and they'll get away with it for a long time. But ultimately, for me, when it comes to envisioning SHTF scenarios, I believe we do know how people will react, because you only have to look at past history of pioneers and people moving into unforeseen places like the Americas specifically. But you can also look at conflicts now. Take a look at places like Gaza. Politics aside, Gaza's a country that's, you know, almost entirely being destroyed. Yet the people there are not running around cannibalizing each other and killing each other for the last grain of rice, because eventually what you get are the normal people, you know, not the fighting people, but the normal people getting together. They know what they need to have, and they might be out there trying to, you know, do what they can for their own family, but out of the chaos, eventually you will get something of a collective community. And the longer the situation goes on, the more people adapt to it. You know, that's always the case with any large scale problem, whether it be a disaster or a war or anything like that. You always have that initial period of chaos where people will be opportunist and people will do terrible things to each other. And that's, I suppose, the benefit of being like a prepper, because you're able to rely on your own resources for a period of time. This is where I differ from what a prepper is to what a survivalist in my own beliefs. You know, it's I wouldn't rely entirely on a cache. You know, there has to be something else there. But always have a bit of both.
Yeah. Interesting. I want to delve into that with you, but we'll save that one for the podcast. But yeah, so we've got a few questions coming up in the chat. Some of them are relevant to what we're speaking about now. Some of them relevant for stuff we'll be speaking about. So don't think I've missed you. If you've put a question in, I might have started it and we'll come back to it after. So don't worry too much. Right. We've talked about networking now, online, stuff like that, and the meets. Is that the best thing, Brian, for people to get out there and start meeting people now, meeting like-minded people? Because a lot of preppers are, call it shy, call it reserved, call it OPSEC, whatever you decide to use as a phrase. A lot of preppers do not want to put themselves out there. But is it something they should be doing now?
It's something they should try to do. Even if speaking on the Discord channel is your first step, you've at least made that first step. Your next step might want to be join a fishing club, an archery club, your local target rifle shooting club, your local clay pigeon shooting club. Go on a bushcraft course, go on a St. John's ambulance course. And when you're on these things, you'll sound people out and see if they've got similar hobbies, similar pastimes, similar interests. And that's going to be your best way of gaining skills, having fun, living your life, and sounding out people if they're. You could have a conversation regarding prepping. Yeah.
Hawkins, like to ask you the same question, because you're kind of that mindset and you've not put yourself out there. Obviously, you've come on here, audio and stuff like that, but you have took the plunge and you're coming along to the prepper meet. Is it a difficult decision for you to do that?
The prepper meet, not so much, no. Because I'm just going to put an amnesty bin on the way in where everyone has to put all cameras and phones in the bin so nobody can take photos the
You
entire
have
time.
not a chance. Not a chance. You best come with your balaclava.
Yeah, I think I've just always kept a bit of a low online presence, so that's why I still maintain that now, really.
But so is it easier for you in person then, for that reason?
Yeah, I won't mind showing my face in person and chatting with people and everything else. Yeah, no issues with that whatsoever. I'm just of the mindset that once it's on the internet, it stays on the internet, it's there forever. So
yeah, definitely. Alan, do you think networking? You're new to the networking. Obviously, you've joined the Discord recently, and the way things are in the world has kind of pushed you slightly in that direction. Is it important to network at this stage?
I think it's definitely important to network at this stage. Hence, why I'm networking at this stage. I share a lot of Hawkins' concerns. I mean, it's obvious that I think preppers and survivalists or bushcrafters, outdoorsmen, whatever title you want to give us, we are naturally cautious people. And so the number one rule of being a prepper, probably a survivalist, is don't let anybody else know, because that's a ridiculous thing to do. Why do I want everybody to know that I've got all these resources and all these skills? Because now I'm a target. So I've got that natural thought going on in my mind as well.
I think we all have, even though we're on here now. It's pros and cons, right?
Well, this is very niche, so I think we're a little bit siloed. Even it doesn't matter how many hundreds or thousands of people watch these videos. Those people are generally quite siloed to that way of thinking anyway. You know, they're the kind of people I was talking about earlier who will use the opportunity to break into houses to steal flat screen TVs. They're not watching these kind of channels. They're not going to recognize me in the street. So I'm taking a bit of a calculated risk from that sense. It doesn't mean I'm going to go out of my way and put a sticker on the back of my car saying I'm a survivalist or I have, you know, X, Y, and Z in my house. I'm going to still be a little bit cautious. Yeah, but I think something's changed in the world. You know, that we can all feel it, we can all sense it, and normal people can sense it as well. The normies out there and the news, and the media, we can see something's happening. And I think at this time, we really do have to get together a little bit, even if it's purely for the sake of trying to figure out what's going on, because we have a broader spectrum of people across the country with different skills and professions. You know, I don't know what any of you guys do for a living, you know, but I can guarantee somebody on the chat does something with the national grid or works within government or works within the armed forces. And they might be able to give us a little bit of information as to what's actually going on should something happen.
Yeah, yeah, and building that network and getting them contacts is great. But if you didn't know, Alan, every single prepper YouTuber knows somebody high up in like MI5 or MI6. Apparently, trust me, it happens. It's half of the course. You have to put the name in of the person you know when you apply for YouTube. So,
or the second man in the balcony at the embassy siege.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's me swinging in. All right. In the chat, definitely no swearing from Brian. He's a new man and definitely lost weight. There's amazing things that happens when you
right there.
When you cut Pepsi out your life. This is the amazing things that happen. Next, he'll have slick back hair. He's got the open shirt already. He's going for the open shirt. He's getting there.
Chest wig.
Miss One wanted it.
Miss One wanted it. Neil Coulson, evening all well. The standard of the chat just completely dropped with the Newcastle fan dropping in. But love yous, really. The Big C showed us around here how selfish our friends were. My mag is currently running at 2.5 families. See, that's good. It's still a good start. And like you talked about history there, Alan, going back and looking at like settlers and stuff like that. But we can go back to COVID. I'll say COVID because COVID, I don't care what YouTube thinks. We can go back to then and kind of get an impression of how some people react, which is more recent history, right? So thank you for that, Storage Mouse. Miss Bling, if SHTF and there was a potential group member with clear mental health issues and are reliant on medication, how do you deal with them? I think if they're already a group member, then that should have been thought about prior, is what I would say. People should always prep their own medication. If you require medication, that should be your sole goal, to prep that however you can, even if that's alternatives. Should I run out, I have to do this. Hawkins, do you want to add anything to that one? Don't tell me that's the steaks you're cooking in the back either.
No, I've dealt with people with mental health issues in the past and whatnot. It's very difficult.
I married one.
Yeah, I was in a long-term relationship with one. Well, 7 actually, if you count all the personalities. But yeah, it's difficult, mate. I don't know if I say again, if they're part of your mag, or part of your group, family, everything like that, then you've got to look after them, haven't you? And as you say, you'd hope that they would have prepped for it, and you would have encouraged them to stock medication and whatnot. But I never saw medication have much of an issue, had much of an impact on things, to be honest. I don't know, maybe it was the person I knew or whatever, but it was always ups and downs and all that stuff. I don't know, wrong medications, who knows? But in a shit hit the fan scenario, I think someone with severe mental health issues will put a lot of impact and a lot of strain on the group as a whole. I mean, I'm a mental health first aider, so I'd be the person to talk to.
Again, it's going to be scenario dependent, right? Are we talking about like complete schizophrenic? Are we talking bipolar? You know, it depends on the condition, right? A lot of the time. Yeah,
definitely a difficult one. Not something I relish in that sort of scenario, to be honest. But
yeah,
you dealt the cards you got, aren't you? Is what it is.
Brian, if they're a potential group member does that influence if they become part of the group, or would it be a conversation to be had of how manageable it is?
Just give them a box of matches and play in the corner and let nature take its course.
Oh, Jesus. Sorry. Please read the disclaimer that everyone's opinions are their own.
On a serious note, you got it right at the start. Critical medication is your first, right before water, is your first priority. And anybody that is within your group, you would have sorted that out first. And if you hadn't, then I don't think you appreciate the consequences. Or if you hadn't, then the consequences can't be that bad anyway. So it depends. Are we talking about somebody you're hiding the spoons, or somebody that just gets a bit nervous? So it just depends. I would agree with you that they should have, and probably will have, stashed some medication away. Whatever way they've decided to do it, they'll have done that.
Mm-hmm.
However, this is where it gets tricky, because if you put out one out the group for a security risk, you risk losing potentially half your mag if it's a family. You know, it's like your brother or your sister's child that you're going to put into the wilds. That's a tough call.
Yeah. Alan, with mental health being like a big factor these days, talked about, I mean, I don't think it's changed in the last 20, 30 years. We just know about it more and we're more aware about it. Is it something to consider when networking?
I think it depends on how it manifests itself. You know, what exactly is it that's the person is exhibiting that's a potential risk to the rest of the group? I will say one thing though, if we're in a situation where it absolutely goes down and we're in a little group of people and we're deciding things like this, you're going to see the very worst in people. You're going to see the absolute mental breakdowns of people because they're not used to this. And even the people who, you know, like us, who think about this a lot, when it actually happens, we're talking about the absolute destruction of our existence here almost. We're talking about entire society collapse.
We're not getting married, are we?
Well, I definitely wouldn't. But what we're seeing is, you know, the end of everything that we have around us. And that's going to manifest itself in, at the very least, extreme depression. I would say, you know, preparation has to start with yourself, or if you're the carer, you know, if you have schizophrenia and you have medication for that, you need to prepare yourself by having that medication. Or if you're a carer for a child that has some sort of mental health issue, then it's your responsibility to have the right medication for that. If it gets to some sort of point where if this person doesn't take a pill, he suddenly becomes a raving lunatic, then yeah, as a group, you're going to segregate that person or move that person aside or whatever. But I think in reality, there has to be a lot of compassion when we talk about these groups, because we're not everybody is a survivalist or a prepper or that way of thinking, and there's going to be lots of vulnerable people out there. Although saying that, there are a lot of people out here, you know, the Gen X or what Gen it is nowadays, who think a mental health issue is, you know, they identify as a cat or something. that will fall away very quickly, I believe. All the woke type mental health issues will disappear overnight.
Oh,
so
yeah.
those real ones with blue hair.
Yeah, that will go away. So
blue hair dye will be the first thing looted from the shops, Brian. I don't know what you're talking about. Right.
But who's going to protect the other 37 genders?
You've built an outhouse, but there's not enough of them. Where's the purple one? Where's the green one? Anyway, let's not get into that. We won't get into politics. Let's say a lot of us are very old school on that front. There is 164 people in the chat. Next, we are going to just go on to physically getting this started in an SHTF situation, not previously like networking like we're talking about now. But before we do that, while we've got all these people in here, I want to give you the chance to hear all about Brian's channel, Scottish Prepper 73, and what he does over on his channel. Brian, go.
I've started to get time to do videos now. The workshop's finished. So did my first live the other day, which went okay. Thanks for everybody and the support for Mike and the rest of the folk in Discord for jumping on at very short notice. And it would have been a bit of a car crash, so I really appreciate that. I'll try and do more lives. and I've got a few more videos coming out on some power bank reviews, dehydrated food reviews, and yeah, that sort of shit.
Excellent. So if you're not already subscribed to Brian's channel, Miss Worm has just posted the link in the chat there. Make sure you give that a click and go and subscribe and show his videos some love. Alan, you're new to the Fireside, but you have your own channel. Please tell us all about it and why all these people need to go and subscribe right now.
Well, I think my channel originally was really just a way of documenting camping trips and the like, bushcrafty type stuff, and sleeping under tarps and that kind of thing. And it evolved a little bit from there into taking a look at survival techniques, fire building techniques, primitive survival, along with kit reviews and that kind of thing. It's a lot more outdoorsy than prepper based. There are a few things on there that you could probably call prepper related, because it's kind of where the world part comes from. I believe survival is the world is a dangerous place, so you have to sort of prepare for all of it. So I think over the coming months you'll see more content related to prepping, because this is now where I'm starting to think more, just based on the world that we're in today.
There you go. So go and check out the World Survivalist. Miss Worm has put the channel in the chat there, and go and watch the evolution into a prepping channel happen in front of your very eyes. Hawkins, you have nothing to promote, so nobody cares.
Correct.
Miss Worm is also our awesome moderator, has a channel. Make sure you go and check her out. She will post her own link in there. She's a published author, and she's even read segments of her own book on the channel. So if you want a sneak preview of them, go and listen to her channel and then go and buy the book afterwards. So thank you. That's it. I just wanted to get that out there before everyone tails off towards the end of it. Right. So I did a poll when we started this. I don't do polls often because I find them very invasive. When you join a live chat, it's like I can't see anything until I click and answer on the poll. I hate them, but I wanted to do one for this. 112 votes were cast to this point right now. And the question was, what's your current situationship? I try to make it like a bit jokey, like a relationship. Lone wolf prepper, lone wolf, but one to mag. I have a group of some friends, and I have an active, trained mutual assistance group. 1% of people, 1%, that was zero up until a moment ago. So one person has a trained active mag. And it's a subject we talk a lot about as preppers, so I find that quite shocking. Lone wolf prepper, 40%. Lone wolf but one to mag, 33%. I have a group of friends, 27%. Them results shock you at all, Hawkins, or is that what you expected?
No, it doesn't shock me.
No?
It's difficult to create a mag. So although I don't show my face on here and keep myself reasonably private, in my real life I talk about prepping to 99% of people, colleagues, family, friends, everything like that. And even talking about it with people that I know and trust and things, it's hard to make a mag. So no, those results don't surprise me at all, to be honest. Unfortunately, because I wish the prepper community did knit together a bit more. But again, that you come back to, I think, what Alan was saying earlier, it's the trust issues, isn't it, we all seem to have, and nobody wants to reveal quite so much just at the beginning, and making that friends and crossing those boundaries and getting to know each other well enough. But yeah, we're on our way, certain ones of us and whatnot.
Yeah. Brian, 40% are lone wolves. We've talked many times about the negative aspects of lone wolf. Everyone has to sleep at some point if it's total chaos outside, etc. Obviously, Alan's kind of in that situation. So is Andy, the bombardier, who comes on the channel, is in that similar situation. Are you surprised that 40% are still lone wolves at this stage?
No, but they could be that way for different reasons. By choice, by fear. They don't want to talk to other people. They don't want to put themselves out there and put their family at risk. Or they might just not know anybody. They might be in a new town. They don't know anybody. So it might not be a conscious choice. I think it's a poor choice, but it might not be a choice to one.
Yeah. Alan, do you think the lone wolves, there's 40% lone wolf and there's 33% that are lone wolves but want a mag? So 40% seem to be happy to be lone wolves. Does that surprise you that because even you're thinking of who you can call upon in that situation?
Do you know, I seen that poll and I voted on it, and I was very surprised to see that in this group. I'm not surprised to see that way of thinking outside of a group like this, because it is quite a niche thing. It's not very. I don't know any other survivalists. I know plenty of people are interested in outdoors and camping, but they don't take it to that next level. I don't know any preppers outside of you guys, which I'm happy to know now. But it is quite niche, and it's one of those things where if you start a conversation in the canteen at work about it, you're either immediately considered to be a bit of a weirdo, or it's just not something anybody's ever thought about before. I was surprised to see it in this group because I thought this would be a lot more. I believe the people in this type of community would be a lot more forward thinking and the benefits of being part of a larger network, a group. Because I think there's also a little bit of a romanticization about the idea of being a lone wolf, because they imagine, you know,
everyone's Rambo, right?
Everybody's Rambo or Mad Max, and that's just not the reality. It really isn't. I mean, I'm lone wolf not by choice. It really is just a case of I just don't know that many people, and you know there probably are other people round about me that are like this. But how do you get to know them? Because, like I say, we're quite private and cautious people, by nature. I would say if you are a lone wolf though, and you're entirely happy to be lone wolf, you have to really think a little bit further ahead. If you were in the sort of the 18th century in the United States, for example, in the Wild West, the lone wolf character, although it makes an interesting film, never tends to fare well, and there's a reason for that. You really do have to eventually be a community.
Yeah, and I think even the people that start as lone wolves to build anything after, it's all right. I mean, that insular lone wolf is a great thing, like especially if there's chaos outside. I live in quite an urban environment. Doors would be blocked off, it would be shut off, and it'd be just me and my family. Andy just posted in the chat there, I'm a lone wolf, nothing really matters but mine and my family's survival, and we'll just work together and with each other. I think that's great, but I think unless you have a really good establishment of growing food and things like that, and you've got all the skill sets you possibly need, it's to rebuild. You're going to have to build something, right? You're not a qualified surgeon, doctor, etc. Things happen. You don't know what you're going to need. So after it happens, after the event, after whatever, obviously we all will instantly look to our immediate survival needs, using the the immediate 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. That's a guideline. People can go longer, shorter, etc. Disclaimer. And we'll think about our immediate survival, and a lot of preppers will shut themselves in at that point because they've got the stockpiles to do so. But after that, it's about gathering people and building that community after the fact. I don't think it's going to be hard to approach people after it's been 30 days of them struggling to survive if you've got a plan, like Brian often says. But what do you look for if you're out there looking for people, Hawkins? Are you asking people their jobs? Are you just approaching people that are in need? How's the strategy there?
I may or may not have satellite images of my area printed off with also kind of Ordnance Survey housing grids printed off with all the houses numbered from 1 to 200 odd. And then might have lists that correlate to the houses which have people's known occupations, skill sets that I'm aware of, and things like that already in possession of.
Did you train my ex-wife?
I mean, it's not complete, and there's some gaps in it, but it's all there. I've got a massive kind of offline knowledge area. I think I put photos on ages ago when I was organising it all. So that's there with the idea that if something like a big grid down happens and I want to then start, go on.
See if your wife finds your map, right, and all these people, and you've got next to it, fit dog, fit dog. How are you going to explain that in a prepping context? What does that mean exactly?
She's seen the list. She's helped correlate it a little bit. So,
So where he's wrote fit, she's wrote so is he.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But even down to the fact that when we were, the wife was pregnant with the baby, and we found out that midwives lived in the village. I made sure that I knew where they lived. Should something happen, I knew where the midwives were. I know where the doctors in the village live. That sort of information I've already put a bit of effort into finding out. So although it's not a mag of any description at the moment, I know where certain critical skills are around where I live, and I would expand that. So day 3 of the grid down, and things have gone Pete Tong, then I would be out there knocking on doors saying, "Are you okay? Do you need anything? Have you got water? Do you need something charging? By the way, what's your skills? What do you do for an occupation?" And then, you build that knowledge, that repository then, don't you?
Yeah.
Then you go to the next level. What you're wearing, right? Okay, give me a go here, Hawkins.
I'm so glad Hawkins admitted it before he was forced to confess as Rift Security.
It's a good idea, though. Somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, the more work you do now, whether it's prepping, whether it's survival skills, whether it's networking, the easier it's going to be after the fact. So I 100% agree there. Maybe not as serial killery vibe as Hawkins is giving off.
Serial killery. It's an area study. You want to know who's around you.
12:15, she showers. Brian, we've talked about you're on about a community and stuff like that, and that's kind of a catchment area that's there because it's based on geography. But skill sets and stuff like that, is it something you're going to look for people to join, or is it just going to be a case anyone who rocks up will be able to join and you'll find a job for them? How does that work? How do you build a mag after the event?
Depends on the scenario, but the scenario you're talking about is extreme. By definition, anybody that survived past the 30-day point has got some sort of skills, or they wouldn't be there. The problem with that is there's going to be a huge trust element, because they're not going to want to trust you because they'll have seen all sorts of horror shows of shit, the same as you have. So as time goes on and you're exposed to more and more carnage and crap, then your limited resources joining together two groups of families rather than taking is going to be a hard bridge to cross. Early days, it's a lot easier. But as time goes on and people become more cutthroat, it's going to be a hard bridge to cross, mate, I think.
Yeah. Alan, well, obviously you've got people you can already call on. You mentioned things like joinery and mechanics. When it comes to like medical, agricultural, technical, protection, even educators and leadership, people with leadership experience, is it something you're going to have to look for after the fact, or is it just going to be a case of as it grows, people adapt into roles?
I think it would be very difficult to look for after the fact. If the entire grid went down and we were all practically in the Stone Age, how would I find a doctor in my town other than, asking everybody that passes me by who's a doctor or whatever? I mean, that's not likely to happen. What you do see, like I say, looking at real world scenarios now with major conflicts, is when you get large influx of refugees grouping together into single places, you end up with tent cities. And then within those tent cities, you end up with communities. People present themselves to those communities to say, I'm a doctor, by the way, is there anything I can do? And, in exchange, you can give me a bag of rice type thing. And you end up with a skills-based bartering system taking place within these, tent city type places. And you see this all over the world for, all sorts of scenarios. Even the hurricanes in America, people all group together in, a sports center or something. People present themselves to say, I've got a little bit of a skill here, make use of it. You will definitely get people who have absolutely no skills whatsoever. And, that's just something that has to be dealt with as time goes on. But I think the skills will come to you. I mean, but it's also the identification of the familiar. And in a complete grid down situation, I look across the street at my neighbor. I don't know him personally at the moment, but he looks like me. he's my age and he has a family. I know what that guy needs. You know, I don't know what his job is and I don't know what his skills are, but I can walk across there and say, look, both of us together are in this situation. We both have families. What do you do? This is what I do. This is what I have. Now we're a unit of two, you know, and it goes out from there in your immediate vicinity. It doesn't really matter if I know a doctor 200 miles away from where I live, because he's not traveling to me just because I think that's going to be beneficial.
Yeah.
You know, it has to be where you're at that time. And I think it will. Society tends to form itself. That's what I believe.
Yeah, interesting with everyone's speaking about their immediate areas. I think all of you three here are talking about that immediate areas. I'm currently in a situation where I'd be looking to bug out. And we talked about that in the past. Location, Hawkins. Home is always, and bugging in is always number one for most preppers, right? And bugging out is always like the kind of last resort. But is it more beneficial to have a mag and a pre-designated point if you were able to? If you were able to have, right, okay, we've got a big patch of land or an old castle in the middle of 5 or 6 different people and we can all get to that area. Is that not a better plan than everyone staying in their own home?
If it was The Walking Dead, maybe. But at the same time, if you were to leave your home, depending on the level of preps that you've got at home and how long you've been playing this game, you might need a removals truck to take all your assets with you to Destination Bravo. So, again, although it would be good in certain circumstances, you're only getting me out of my house if the place is on fire or flooded up to the second story roof, or I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I still wouldn't leave the house until I absolutely had to, because even if you did have something in place, there's too much here that's invested in this place with all the preps and things in place. Let's put it that way, to move somewhere else. You'd always be at a disadvantage. So
yeah. Potentially, yeah, especially if you're starting from scratch, Brian. But a well-organized mag, Brian, if you could acquire said property in peace times and stock it there and meet there and train there, surely that's going to be a more secure position than anyone's individual home that has neighbors and different uncontrollable aspects, right?
In theory, yes. In reality, there's a lot of details that would need thrashed out. And true SHTA hits the fan scenario, the bugging out thing comes in, right? Your central location that everybody's going to get to, one, you need to have a caretaker in it, somebody that actually lives there, with all your stuff there for everybody to go to. So somebody's going to need to be there to protect it all the time. If it's 14 miles, right, 10, 14 miles, you could walk that. You could walk that, no problem, with a pack to get you there in a relatively comfortable period of time. But not everybody in the house could do that. And somebody else in their house might not be able to cover that sort of distance either. They could be eaten on the way there, or God knows what else could happen to them. So in principle, it sounds really good. Central place, you've all got your skill sets, you're all going to go there. It's going to be great. You can all defend it as a group. Only if you can get there. And only if you've got stuff there to start with.
Yeah, got to be a practical plan. Alan, there's a lots of stateside, our American cousins, they'll have like missile silos and they're selling rooms. So it's a pre-built prepper community. And if shit hits the fan, you've got to get there. Is that a good plan, or is it too reliant on uncontrollable factors of travel?
I think it's a good plan if you're within a vicinity that has that kind of infrastructure to begin with. You know, if you live in a country as large as the United States or Canada, and you're out in Wyoming or whatever, and it's only 10 miles to a bunker that you can all hunker down on, or a farm where like-minded people will get together and defend it like a little miniature town, then absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's the way to go. But again, it's relying on one thing. What happens if that's not there and your entire preps, your entire way of thinking has been orientated to this mecca that you're going to walk to and just survive? What happens when it goes away? The bugging out thing altogether is always, it's a very long subject to me. I've spent a lot of time thinking about bugging out. Like Hawkins, it would take an awful lot to make me bug out from where I'm at, an awful lot, because I think for the people who believe that they can just wander off into the woods with their camping gear with their entire family.
Oh, they got in a week. We don't even
No.
talk about them.
No, I mean, even for me, I'm a fairly okay survivalist. But you put me in the woods with nothing in November in Scotland, I'm going to be in trouble. You know,
Mhm.
I may or may not survive, but I'm in even more trouble if I have children or a wife who just does the occasional summer camping trip. It's just not realistic. I take the view that you should really try to make that place your surroundings, you know, your town, like your neighbors, even if it's just blocking off the 2 roads that come into your street and you're a group of 10, the row of 10 houses that you live in, you know, make that your place to establish. It's not going to be a nuclear bunker, but it's a home for all those people, and you can all collectively work together. If you do have to bug out, you know, genuinely bug out, yeah, then I think having rendezvous points along the way to pre-designated destinations, not one destination. I've got bug out places located. I've got 5 or 6 of them in all different directions, because I don't know what's going to happen in north of Scotland. I don't know what's going to happen in the borders. I don't know what's going to happen east and west of me. Depending on what happens, depends on the direction I'm going to go. And I'm not going to try and walk it all in one distance, because my furthest away bug out location is 150 miles away. Now, it's going to take me a long time to get there. But I've got 6 other bug out locations between here and there. You know, and I'm going to spend a lot of time between each of those places, because I'm establishing little caches along the way. And I think that would be the way to go, especially in a country like the UK. We're a very small country and there's a lot of people. And even here in Scotland, I mean, I'm in probably the busiest part of Scotland, in the central part. But if you go wandering off into the Highlands, you're not going to find an abundance of food up there or resources. You know?
Yeah, and you'd be amazing how many preppers think that's their bug out plan. I'm just going to go and live in the Highlands. All right, good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. That's what I would say. The midges will survive because they will eat you. and you know, that'll be it.
Yeah. I think everyone's of the same mindset. Like, you don't want to lose that, but you could also argue on that front that you might not be at home. We're guaranteed to probably not be at home when it happens. So we're not going to be sat there fully prepped, ready to go. We could be 100 miles away from our house. So having them multiple rendezvous points as well could be good for your family if they know where they are. Because if you can get to one and they can get to one, stuff like that, having plans in place is key. When thinking about securing a location, just think about near fresh water, think about the land you're going to be on if you're going to grow food, etc. Shelter, the buildings themselves, how defensible they are, how secure they are. And if it's a human heavy traffic place, right? So if loads of people are going to pass by this stately home because they're going bugging out at the Highlands to feed the midges, then it's probably not going to be the ideal location. So just make sure you put all that in mind. The second to last thing I want to talk about on this is rules, 10 commandments and all that lot, and leadership. So, come to you first, Brian. In your community, is it going to be Kim Jong Brian, or is it going to be elected leaders, or how are you going to run that, and how does that translate over to other people? How will they take that?
You're going to have a small village council effect, because what if something happens to you? You might be the most reasonable person, considerate, doing things for the good of everybody. But if something happens to you and then a complete wumble takes over and it's all about them, there's no checks and balances, and there's nobody to call you out for bad calls. Because let's be honest, none of us know everything. So you're going to need the checks and balances of other people with other skill sets, and also to tell you when you're being an asshole, when it's a bad idea. So I would suggest for we are, you would need at least 3 or 4 people on it, because you can't be awake all the time either. You can't be awake all the time. You can't be all the burden and the stress of decision making. That's going to drag you down. You need to share the load.
No, I'm in charge.
El Presidente.
quick comeback on that, Brian. Is it important to put that in place if you are starting a mag now? So if people in the chat are thinking about, right, okay, I know Tom, Dick, and Harry, and they're going to come round, is it important to establish that hierarchy at this stage? Obviously, in the Discord, we have a leadership team, but it's essentially a bunch of us just administrating it and making decisions for the good of the group. Is that a good thing to have at this stage, that you can then move over to that, or would it be completely different?
Yes and no. Even if you look at the leadership structure of Discord, you're able to take decisions. People, they get cut a lot of slack, right? But ultimately, somebody's going to have the final say and make a judgment call after taking counsel from everybody else. So in Discord, that would be your good self. And in any small mag, you're going to have somebody that's going to have to make the ultimate decision after consulting with everybody else. But there's that trust, and there's the dispensing the authority, to other people to make their own independent decisions. But ultimately, the buck's got to stop with somebody. And again, people need direction. So Discord wouldn't have started if you hadn't started the channel. So there's always going to be a first.
Yeah. Hawkins, are you king of your local housing area once you've cordoned off the singular road, or is it just going to be open for group discussion all the time?
Firstly, beware of anybody who craves power. I feel. I think.
Where's my crown?
Leaders emerge themselves with their own, demonstrating their own skills and level-headedness and what they can do for others, and sharing knowledge and everything that comes from it. And I think they just naturally float to the top eventually. But no, I wouldn't aim to be a leader. I'd aim to help out. But if it comes to using all my resources, then my decision would be final if they were my resources, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, I've spent the money, I've spent the time, I've thought about it in advance. I'd share what I could, but it would be
how does that work if Joe Bloggs, the alpha male Krav Maga expert, says no, actually I'm making the decision?
I know what his answer would be in reality, but he's not going to bring it on here.
No, okay. So if the answer is something like that, would it be conflict? Is conflict the answer, or would you step back at that stage?
If somebody tried to take my stuff off me forcibly, it would be conflict.
No, I'm not talking about taking your stuff off you forcibly, but like, say you're in this community group and you're talking, and there's somebody clearly craving that power, climbing to the top, trying to push his decisions on you more than take stuff.
I would hope that there'd be enough level-headed people within the local community that the bullshit would be cut through. And again, I think somebody said a little elders sort of thing, a bit like what we've got, really, isn't it? You get a few people with some similar skills together, you talk it through, you come up with an action plan. Somebody will emerge as kind of the person who is giving the orders out. It's just natural, isn't it? You can't have, at the end of the day, 10 people without somebody being the ultimate governor. Somebody's accountable. You know what I mean? Everyone can have responsibilities in the group, but somebody's got to be accountable for the top and make the high level decisions. So, but if somebody's actively craving it and being a dick and everything else, then I think that's when you talk to the others and we say what we can do about this, and you come up with a measured response between the lot of you.
Yeah, fair. Alan, with this day and age, anyone with more than 3 pubes thinks they're an alpha male, and they're probably not. But that's going to be a struggle in an SHTF situation. People are going to want to try and take power and stuff like that. Is that probably one of the reasons a lot of people want to be lone wolves?
Yeah, I think so. It's that impression anyway. I think culture is the key to this. The democratization of leadership within our culture is always there. I mean, it naturally evolved in places like this, and I think that would eventually come to the top. The thing about even this kind of community, not even just this community, but just people in general, is everybody thinks they're the main player, and it's the realization that maybe that's not the most beneficial thing. If I got a small group of a mag together in my local street because something was going down, and there was somebody who was far smarter than me and was making much better decisions than me, and I could identify that, I'm happy to be led. I don't need to be the person steering the ship here. If somebody can steer it better, that's the better person to be. And initially it would be a case of, if you're the only person who's had the foresight to stockpile on bags of rice and water, and nobody else has got anything, logically, the other people in the group are going to say, well, I think you should share all that out.
Yeah.
That may or may not be a good idea. And you have to decide as a person early on, you're going to know that's going to happen. So you have to decide initially yourself, is this a group I want to be a part of, or do I not want to be part of it? If you want to be part of it, you're going to be sharing those resources, whether you had they were lazy and didn't bother to do anything to begin with or not. If you don't want to be part of that group, you're going to then need to work out how you're going to get all that stuff out of there and move to somewhere else, which has always been a little bit why I'm not really in favor of having a house full of preps, because I can't carry it all.
Sambo,
so I'm either going to share it, not tell anybody about it, or I'm going to try and work out a way of getting that on my back.
How do you deal with stuff like this, though? Sambo Rambo, great name. As a male, I want to be an alpha. I can't help that. Do you think you're going to have power struggles in a lot of these small communities?
Well, so are all males. All males have got that, just like, and the fact, remember in the school days, out in the playground, you've got the sort of jocks, I suppose they would call it in America, and you've got, the tiers of groups of people. That ultimately is kind of what would happen even in adulthood. You put a group of men together, eventually a hierarchy evolves from that. Might not even be a man, it could actually be a strong female leader, and I don't think that should be ignored, because that has happened plenty of times.
Don't you suck up to Miss Worm. Don't you suck up to Miss Worm.
Well, Thatcher and all that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely the case that I think a hierarchy will come about itself. But like Hawkins would say, if somebody's strutting in there saying, you know what, I think I'm going to be the leader of this group, that's a red flag to me straight away. And I definitely wouldn't be that person either, because all I'm doing is bringing attention to myself. And the quiet guy in the background's thinking, I don't think so, mate. First chance I get. So you don't want to put yourself out there as well.
Got a Mark Anthony.
Yeah. You have to kind of see where the chips fall. And in the beginning, it's just about, here's a situation, what can we do to help each other, not rule each other. That comes after.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's probably one of these things that's going to naturally sort itself, like we say. Let's quickly go to the chat. Does anyone think that the government will create FEMA camps if it does hit the fan? I think as long as they've got powers and authorities, they will try to do things like that, to help the people. So anybody else want to weigh in on the government on this national platform we're on at the moment? No.
I don't think they're that organised. They've got no civil resilience plan at the moment. There's nothing.
No, I expect there's plans in place. I know there's plans in place for certain things. Whether they get enacted is another story. If it really truly hits the fan, Joe Bloggs, is he going to sit there and serve his dear leader, or is he going to go home and look after his family? Probably is the key there. Mike, you're only 10 minutes from me in SHTF. Allegedly 10 minutes away from you. Who knows? Preppers in my area are very insular, says Tuck. I got PTSD and live in a new village and don't know anyone. Plus, I'm single. My kids live in the city with their mum an hour away, as do all of my friends and family. I mean, that is a selling point right there of why to network at this stage.
Well, we're here for a start.
Exactly. And there'll be people in our Discord that don't socialize, don't do anything outside of being on the internet and stuff like that, and it's kind of bringing them out of their shells. And if that progresses into meets and stuff like that, you might meet somebody at a prepper meet or on Discord that turns out lives 2 minutes away from you, and that's the start of that. So it's not a great situation to be in 100% what you're there living with there, but it's definitely more reason to network at this stage. What happens when less prepared people in your mag ask you for food and water, and you can only just provide enough for your own family? Alan. if supplies are limited, obviously you don't stock a lot anyway because you're not essentially a prepper, you're a survivalist. If your supplies are limited, but one of these friends that you have invited to help out and stuff like that is asking you for stuff, is that a cut-off point or?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a case of what are you offering me? What are you providing to me? I do have limited resources, so I've set up for my household for a few months. If I was to bring an additional person in there, then I would be taken away from those resources, and all that does is shrink the time that I'm able to survive. If it's a complete random stranger, then that's an outright no, because that really is just a case of, sorry, I just don't have the resource.
Yeah, but I think that's why he said people in your mag, though. So it's somebody you've already got a relationship with at this stage.
Yeah, but like I says earlier, then it really does become a case of having a genuine conversation with the people within your mag to say, here's the situation we're in. What do we all have to pool our resources? And if we did pool our resources entirely, whether it be food, water, shelter, how long can we sustain ourselves based on that, based on the number of people here? If suddenly 100 people get together and you're the only prepper with 3 months worth of food for your family, that's not reasonable for them to say, well, I think you should give us all a little scoop of your rice. Personally, I would be able to identify that pretty quickly. And that's when I would be leaving that mag as quickly as possible. And that's one of those very rare situations where I would be bugging out, Yeah. You have to look after yourself to begin with and your family to begin with, and it goes out from there. And, it's kind of, if you're on a life raft and you're the only person with the bottle of water, it probably is a good idea to give everybody a little bit of that bottle of water. But I tell you what, if I'm on that life raft with my very young child who's dehydrating, everybody else on that raft could dehydrate to death as far as I'm concerned. But they all know that, so you have to weigh up your situation awareness, and you have to adapt to, to look after yourself. Survival starts with yourself.
Yeah. 100%. Brian, I think you'll agree with what he's just said there. But is it something you should consider going into a mag? So, like, if you're thinking, if you're starting a mag, should you kind of vet other people? Because everyone could say, I've got 30 days worth of food. I've got 90 days worth of food. But if you've never seen their rows of Irish stew behind them on the shelves on a YouTube channel, then how do you know?
It's dead simple. You've got to manage expectations from the get-go, right? And the scenario that you've painted, you've either went to a central location or they've came to yours. This should all have been gamed out before, right? If you come here or I come to yours, I'm going to bring this. Or if we meet, we'll all bring this. If they don't play their part, I'm sorry, that's on them, right? And that's a shitty position to put you in, but that's on them. And unfortunately, that will happen. Look at family. I mean, I've got 2 brothers and a sister. One of my brothers preps, the other 2 don't bother. So if something happens and they come knocking on my door, I'm then faced with the horrible scenario that I've got to turn them away or shorten the life expectancy of my own family. These things need sorted out beforehand so people know what to expect.
Yeah. Hawkins, are you going to give everyone a scoop of rice on the estate?
Not a chance.
Even while you're cooking your steaks, they still can't have the scoop of rice.
No, they can't. I mean, it depends on how long I think the event's going to last for.
So, let me just put a caveat on that. What if it is somebody that you know are part of your mag, stuff like that? If you're still getting low on certain supplies, suddenly Brian rocks up at the door. He's been walking back to home from London since this whole happened, and he's finally made it as far as your door. Are you going to share?
Pepsi Max.
Okay.
Let him rehydrate. Yeah, with Brian, I would. Yeah, I'd invite him in and share.
Even if that takes down your limited supplies.
Yeah, because he's a smart man. He'd bring stuff to the party. I've even said to the wife's sister, and I've said to the wife, obviously, like, if anything was to happen, I'd expect her and her kids to come here. And the selfish reason behind that is I would feed them and keep them alive, because that would be another person to look after the young kid on our side, because looking after a kid full time at home is a fucking nightmare.
And
So I would
trying to survive and do jobs, yeah.
Yeah, so I would happily invite others in just for the babysitting aspect of it, if you know what I mean. So it depends how bad the situation, what they're bringing to the party, if they're bringing skills or labour or things like that, and then depends on how long the situation lasts. So then you've just got to start growing food, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question based on this whole premise?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just me, or does everybody else set a certain amount aside for people that don't bother their arse, basically families? Or
I think it's a luxury with prepping. I think it's a luxury with prepping. It's when you've got to that stage where if you've got to that stage where I'm comfortable for 60, 90 days as a prepper, I have a cutoff then. I'm not going to ever, unless I've, move and get loads more space, I'm never going to have 2-3 years worth of supplies. I'm going to go down to skills, survival, and that side of things. That's only to get over that initial period. But I think you'd have to be at a place where you're like, I'm done. Now this investment is going to other people. For me, personally. I don't know if any of you guys want to weigh in on that one as well.
I make a certain allowance for, so one of my children doesn't stay here, and she's got her own, my granddaughter, and she's got a partner. They are not of our mindset. They're not true believers, for want of a better term. So this is where it becomes an issue. Like it boils down to your poll where you have no mag or no whatever. That's because those round about you will happily accept, and they'll mock your storing and they'll mock your preps, but they'll be the first ones knocking the door. And it's incumbent on you to prep for the unbelievers, for want of a better term. And that's why I always keep a little more for, like, say, extended family who I know won't do anything.
I had that very same scenario during the COVID days where suddenly members of my family kind of contacted me and says, this is early days where people thought it was the end times, the virus was going to kill everybody,
and they were both buying milk from Tesco.
Yeah. They were asking me what we should do. Would they be able to come to me? And there was a very parasitic sort of feeling about it. I remember thinking at the time, well, my entire lifestyle was a bit of a joke to you until it sort of showed up at your own door. And
who's the crazy asshole now?
Yeah, it's highly dependent on what you genuinely have available. I think I've got a very big family, and to be honest, there's some members of my family I don't know how they survive now. It's just how they're getting through life. I don't know. In a genuine SHTF, I would think about them. It has crossed my mind. I was like, they would be in a dire situation, but I don't have the resources to be able to, go and help all of those people. There has to be a point where you look at your own circle and say, look, I'm going to prioritize these 6 people. As heartless as that sound,
it's going to be a very difficult decision to make in the reality. We can talk about it all day long. In the reality,
outsiders have to bring something to the party. My young children aren't bringing nothing to the party, but I'm going to give them everything possible to survive, because to me that's important. But to nobody else that is, and that's the case with everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the question. And the follow-up there, Brian. Just mentioned, sorry, I'm clicking the wrong thing. Greyman Prepping became a new member to the channel. Thank you very much. Greyman Prepping has his own channel as well. Go and subscribe to that. He is over on the other side of the pond. He's one of our American prepping friends, but very down to earth, not doom and gloom like that. And he does awesome shorts, which is a prep to think about of the day. And it's not telling you exactly how to do it, but it just makes you think, have I got that? It's a really good little series that he does. So go and subscribe to Greyman Prepping as well if you get a chance. Thank you for becoming a member. I advise everyone to learn the art of manipulation, hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming, and manipulation tactics. E-learn what you can, and not only to use, but to recognize others' manipulation and devio. I can't believe I got through all of them multiple syllable words. Who's proud of me?
Do they not teach that to women in home economics at school?
Brian's opinions are his own. Yeah, I mean it's a good point. I think that would be a whole fireside of its own rather than putting that to the panel. But yeah, thank you for that. It's something to think about. Preppers' brains never rest. We were out today and was making mental notes about what trees were growing where. It's a good thing, yeah. Always be on alert. Rules are key. Don't be a dick. There would be leaders in difficult skills, but a clear leadership structure overall. Sometimes quick decision by one, but need buy-in by a committee in general. Yeah, I mean that's generally how we work in the Discord, right? It's like if there's a snap, if someone quickly needed muting or banning because they're being abusive, one of us who was online at the time would do it. But if it was like, let's assess this person, it would be a group decision, right?
Was anybody a fan of Lost? Remember that TV show Lost?
I was until it just lost all plots and storylines. At the beginning was great, but what the hell was the black smoke?
Yeah, it does get a bit ridiculous. But see, the central theme of how that community of people eventually formed a coherent group, and out of that became hierarchies and the different personalities. I think that was pretty accurate for our type of culture anyway in the West. You know, because I think different cultures are different. That was an interesting show back in the day.
And you had
craziness.
You had that kind of I want to be the alpha male character who's trying to be in charge and stealing stuff and stuff like that. But you also had the fact that the Doctor had a skill set that was valuable and naturally fell into that position, right?
Definitely.
So we talk about. Yeah, it's good. Just stop watching when black smoke appears and happens and numbers. I realized when I watched that I'm Hurley, who's the big guy in there, because I am that lucky that I would win the lottery, then crash on a desert island. Limited supplies, but if you're in a mag, then you share. That's the whole point. I agree, but I think that needs to be considered beforehand, because you could easily have a pretender in there and he has no supplies whatsoever. So think about that. Mags should be getting together monthly to boost supplies and stock take. I agree. And if you've got a good close enough mag, you can take advantage of that by buying in bulk. Suddenly if you're buying 1,000 Frey Bentos because you've got a mag of 50 people, the price comes down. But Brian's getting rid of his anyway, so I'm going to be up to Brian soon to pick up his sausage and beans and Frey Bentos. We had a cyber attack on a local co-op and people are going crazy. Yeah, I was in I got some footage of Marks and Spencer's in just outside of the outskirts of York that was completely cleared the other day, in quite a prominent shopping estate as well. So it was it's strange. They're all under attack.
There's communities and the islands in Scotland at the moment who are running out of food because they rely almost entirely on the co-op or the Scotbid, which I think is the same group. And I posted that on Discord the other day, the news article for that. But there are actually people now saying that they need emergency food drops. They're only talking about fresh fruit and vegetables at the moment. But I mean, when I read that, I thought, you live in an island in the north of Scotland and your entire dependency on feeding your family is the co-op. I think you need to have a word with yourself.
Yeah, well, you should. That is one situation you should be a prepper in, right? There's not even. You don't even have to label it. You don't have to watch any channels. You live on an island.
Yeah, that's a microcosm for this whole country, though. I think.
Yeah.
They should sort it out. Somebody needs to do something.
Exactly.
I'll tell you a little story. I shared that article when you put it in the Discord with some of my old mates who live in a different town, other side of the country, and he said, I said, am I converting any to preppers yet? And one of them said, I can't afford to be a prepper. I said, all right. I said, well, it doesn't cost much to buy cheap food from Asda. Bearing in mind, this guy's doing a decent job, like 500 quid a day sort of money. And that's been for a long time. And he said, I'm more concerned about economic uncertainty and stuff at the moment. I said, fair enough. Well, chatting. And then he said, although I have just spent 16 grand getting my Nissan Skyline sorted with all new parts and this, that, and the other. I was just like,
yeah.
Do you know, it says he wouldn't spend any money on food. Even I said, if you put 500 quid worth of food to one side, that's a lot of food for a family.
He
But
wouldn't be
just
one
spent
of my 6 in the group.
no, yeah, but just spent 16 grand on parts from Nissan Skyline. So it's like, yeah, our priorities are different in life.
I could forgive him for the Skyline. It's a nice car. It's a nice
Yeah,
car.
it is a lovely car, to be fair. And he'll make money on it. Like, it's good.
Taking that happy balance between living your life and taking reasonable precautions. And unfortunately, the society at the moment is very much, oh, something's went wrong. They should fix it. Somebody's got to do something about it. But you are that somebody. It's down to you. And that message is not, it's just not sinking in.
Yeah.
When Hurricane Katrina took place, it took FEMA, I think, 4 or 5 days to get water to the Superdome. And that's in the richest country in the world and one of the largest cities in America.
With a lot of
and there were still people with no power for months. Sorry, mate.
Oh, no, sorry, I was just saying, and a lot of helicopters that belong to the military who can airdrop whatever in at any point. So the fact that it took them that long, we wouldn't really stand a chance, would we?
Mm. No, this is why we prep. Yep. That's the end of like the side of the mag things that I really wanted to touch on. Unless you guys have got anything else to bring up on them.
Can I ask Alan a question?
Of course you can.
Alan, you said earlier that you had numerous bug out locations picked around the place that you could bug out to. Now, I have none because I don't intend to bug out. And the only place I could imagine ever bugging out to be would be a family member's house. So what are your, without obviously telling me what 3 words address, your bug out locations? Is it a field? Is it private land kind of owned by you? Is it land that you know would be empty? Is it an abandoned house?
What do you look for in a bug out location?
Yeah.
It's slightly I'll try and say it as quickly as possible because there's quite a lot of thought went into it, and it's not entirely foolproof the way I've got it. Most of the bug out locations I've got are secluded woodland remote areas. There are a couple of bothies in there, and there's actually a couple of ruined castles, weirdly enough. But for the most part, they are woodland type locations, the kind of place you would imagine people bugging out to. The difference being what I've got between where I live and my next bug out location is I have a cache there and I have a clear way of getting there. And it's mostly done by using pre-existing trails, like hiking trails. There's a lot of them, and those were the traditional ways that people used to get around. Now, once I get there, I'll just see if I can lean over and grab this. I have these in those locations, right? I have 30 days worth of stuff in these. I've got 6 of them at the moment. I do plan on having far more, and I have them in a circle to where I live, to those bug out locations. So my thinking is, if I get to a place, which my first location is only 8 miles away, if I get there, I know I can live there with my family for 30 days. An absolute push. If the situation is so dire that it's going beyond 30 days, then something major's happened. But I can then move from that location to my next location. And it's, the idea being that if I get to my first location and there's already a crowd of people there, I move to the next one. And I move to the next one. There's no central location. Am I going somewhere in particular? No. The way I planned it was based on, to be honest, it was based on nuclear strikes. It was places on the map that I believed would be nuclear targets. And I've orientated my way around those areas because to me, that's the only thing that could really make me, up sticks my entire family, move to those locations in that situation. It's also just a way of, to be honest, getting rid of spare gear. I've got lots and lots of gear. Every one of those barrels I've got has a full shelter system. It has food. It has preps. It has water. It has everything. I had a shed full of this stuff to begin with, and I thought, what am I going to do? I was going to sell it, and then I thought, no, what I'll do is I'll make caches. My caches are getting bigger and bigger as time goes on. I could share those caches with, a mag of people, if need be, if those people bring something to the table, because, especially manpower in a situation like that, it's always a good idea to have 2 or 3 other men and their families with the same priorities,
Are they, can I ask about the stashes? Are they pre-set up to all be kind of the same? So you don't have to have stash 1 because it's got the fire making, because that's in every single one? Is it kind of each one could be its own survival thing on its own?
They're identical. They're absolutely identical. So, and it's very basic stuff, to be honest. I will make a video one day soon about exactly what's in one of these barrels that I've got. But to be honest, it's really just a shelter, a little bit of water purification. There's no actual water in there, but the means to purify water, a relatively decent amount of food, freeze-dried food, some warm blankets, wool blankets, and a few other items in there as well, like tools, axes, knives, and things like that. Stuff that you don't want to carry. I don't want to carry an axe from one place to the next, but axes are cheap. I can buy an axe out of B&Q for 10 quid. I can buy 6 axes, and I can put one in each of my barrels. And that's what I've did.
I think Snapdragon said you're a prepper. Simple as. I thought Alan said he wasn't a prepper.
Well, I'm a realist. And being a little bit prepared, I think, is just smart.
Yeah. We have another question in the chat. If you do want a question, please get it in the next few minutes. We will be ending soon. So if you want a question answered for all the panel or one of the panel, please get it in as soon as you can. Greyman Prepping says, does your mag, etc., have its own land? If not, why? Miss Worm did mention the cost of land over here and stuff like that. I'll put that out there. If you had a mag in place, let's say we're 6 months, a year down the line, we're all comfortable and we've got like 7 or 8 people in a really strong mag, something you'd consider? Let's all pool together, chip in and get some land, Hawkins? Yeah?
With the right crew and with some spare money, yeah. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, definitely.
Why not?
Brian, I know you've looked already at certain places.
Just so Gray understands the cost of land in Scotland and in the UK in general is horrific. If you wanted like 5 acres of woodland, even for talk's sake, it would be 40 grand to 60 grand easily. And then they put restrictive covenants on it that you can't build permanent structures, you can't use motorbikes, you can't use freaking chainsaws, you can't shoot. There's all sorts of horrible restrictions on anything in the UK. It's very, very difficult, but it's still doable. And yeah, if I had the right group, yeah, I'd chip in.
Yeah. Something you'd consider, Alan?
Yeah, definitely. It's something I've thought about before. I mean, the dream is to own your own land and have a sort of, a homestead of your own, and you live on there, and the rest of the world can go to hell. Everybody in here thinks that, and probably would do something similar to that if they won the lottery.
I'm trying.
The reality is, there is a lot of sense in having a collective group, put in a little bit of money to buy a piece of land where they can go to that land and practice skills unimpeded, like camping or bushcraft and that kind of stuff, especially in England, where you don't have the same sort of rights of access to land as we do in Scotland. You do have to bear in mind, though, that simply owning the piece of land doesn't mean when shit hits the fan, anybody's going to care about the fact that you own that woodland. In Scotland, I can camp anywhere I like. All the land in Scotland is owned. The law in this country allows me to camp anywhere, as long as I don't damage crops. You don't have that same right in the rest of the UK. I think you might a little bit in Northern Ireland. So that's something to bear in mind, that if you're planning on buying land purely to bug out to because you think that will be your fortified area, bear in mind that 99.9% of the population passing through there couldn't give a shit if you owned those trees. If they want to camp there, they're going to. And in Scotland, it's my absolute right to do that, whether you own it or not. You buy a piece of land in Scotland, I can still camp there. Doesn't matter if you own it. So that's something to think about.
Just watch out for the landmines if you do camp on my land there, Alan, once I've got it.
So if you can camp anywhere in Scotland, does that mean I can pitch a tent in Brian's front garden tomorrow?
The law actually, it depends how big his garden was. Because, this is one of those things where people say, can I camp in Balmoral there or something like that? The answer is yes. Yes, you can. There is loitering laws. There's no trespass laws as such. But if you have a very small garden and you're pitching a tent there, then it could be reasonably said that you're there for intimidating purposes and you're just loitering. You're not camping. On the other hand, if you own 1,000-acre trees or wind farm or something like that, and I pitch my tent there for the next 3 days, the landowner can't do a thing about it in Scotland.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Don't go and try and pitch a tent in Brian's garden. You're gonna have to try and get a peg through plastic grass and through concrete.
Those rights don't extend to hunting, fishing, or building permanent settlements. That's the only stipulation.
Yeah.
There's another one on that. Armed trespass is still in the statute books in Scotland. So if you're on somebody's land that you don't own with a firearm, that's still an offence.
Okay, there you go. So come unarmed to Brian's garden. Yeah, but I think the answer generally, Greyman, is we all would potentially aspire to it. It's just not as readily available over here. Thank you for the question. Robin Best, what do you do regarding petrol? As if there is a major problem, you have about 6 months once opened before it degrades. Who wants to take this?
Depends on the petrol you're buying for a start. Depends how you store it. So I've got petrol in jerry cans that the longest I'll generally keep it is 6 months anyway. You can add stuff called Stabol to it. It'll help. But ultimately, what I tend to do is, and this is going to be a problem now, because as of tomorrow, I'm changing from a plug-in hybrid petrol to an electric car. So the ability to recycle 60 gallons. If I
no log burner and an electric car. You'd get that's my 2 subscribers gone. So I'm going to have to think of another way to recycle the fuel. So my wife's still got a petrol car, so we'll just put it into hers. But if you've got a generator, run it empty. Empty the carburetor bowl. So turn off your fuel tap, empty the carb bowl, make sure you're not letting it fill up with old dirty fuel, waxes up, right? Gums up everything, all the jets. So do that. If it's try and recycle your fuel, or you could add a fuel stabilizer. But if you buy good quality fuel, you store it, it'll last longer than 6 months. I know it does because I've tried it. If you buy shit,
2 years
sorry.
old and still working.
Yeah.
2 years and it's still working in generators. But I bought a dual fuel generator as well now, so stock propane instead.
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting, and that lends itself to the same as any prepping, right, Brian? If you're stocking 100 cans of beans, then use the stuff at the front, restock from the back, and make sure you're eating what you store. Same as the fuel, make sure you're using what you store, right?
Following off the back of Hawkins thing there, aspirationally, I will be ditching the petrol generator for a multi-fuel one, which I'll only run on propane, because it functionally will last forever as long as you keep spare rubber O-rings for the gas bottle seals and stuff, which may degrade over time. But that would be my next step. However, be aware, if it's a 2 kilowatt generator on petrol, you might get 1.6 kilowatts out of it with propane, because it's not got the same bang. Yeah.
Anything to add on the fuel front there, Alan?
I don't have a fuel generator. What I do have is a motorcycle. I have an adventure motorcycle, which, it's a little bit of a side hobby, but to me, that's also a great bug out vehicle as well. And most people will know with motorcycles, you have a period where you winterize it. Basically, I keep it in a locked shed over winter, and I always keep the fuel tank absolutely full, because air pockets cause rust and corrosion and stuff. Yeah, condensation. So you add a fuel stabilizer to it and you always have it full. I've got a few plastic jerry cans of fuel in the same shed, which I also keep handy. But also have the mindset as well that I never allow my car to go below halfway. And I've told the missus the same thing. If it gets to half, just fill it up. I'm old enough to remember the fuel strikes several years ago, where people were queuing at petrol stations for hours. A little bit of preemptive panic buying. Panic buying is actually a sensible thing to do if you do it early enough. If you do it too late, then you're just
do it without the panic, right?
Do it without the panic. See the thing coming. If I thought a fuel strike was on the way, I would have more than 2 jerry cans in my shed. I would have 10 probably. But just always keeping sort of above halfway seems to be good in principle. I think you're not spending any more money by doing that. You're just keeping yourself topped up and prepared.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for the question, Robin Best. I think that's the end of our questions at the moment. So thank you everyone for being involved in the chat, for the odd super chat and that was great, and the big donation for Polonium, really helpful, really appreciated. Hawkins, any final thoughts and goodbyes for the peoples?
No. I'd just say, if you do take prepping seriously and you want to make a mag, come on Discord, chat shit, have a laugh, abuse each other, join your zone, and then if you feel like you want to tag along to a meetup at some point, and you never know, we might not all be that weird in the end in person.
Yeah, don't abuse each other. It's against the rules. Brian, any final thoughts and goodbyes?
Just thank you for everybody to turn up on a Sunday night as usual. It's good to see so many numbers. Keep the questions coming, because at some point Mike's questions will dry up after a certain amount of time if we don't have enough interaction, and that's why we're here, is to try and learn from you guys and maybe try and help. So, and good to see Alan on as well. It's always nice to refresh things now and again.
Yep. Alan, thank you for joining us as a guest on the Fireside. Do you have any final thoughts on the mag subject before we say our goodbyes?
I mean, beforehand, I would just say, thanks for letting me sort of impromptu join. I wasn't expecting to join today, or the other night for that matter as well. It was a very last minute thing, so I appreciate a little bit of a platform to chat to you and see what's going on. Along the mag thing, I would just say, a little bit based on the previous question about mental health and things like that. Think of it more as community than like a military. A little bit of compassion, because not everybody will be the same. There will be people with issues or disabilities, and I think in the real world, if it was to really go down, people like us who have the preparation, the skills, and the knowledge and the foresight to plan for these things have an actual human responsibility to help these people along a little bit, and maybe take in the family with the disabled family member or the slightly mental health issue or whatever. That's just part
human.
And parcel of society. It's human. That's you're not going to have a mag of soldiers. If you want that, then it's a military. If you want a mag of community, then you have to realize community's diverse, and it has their own issues, and you're going to have dramas. You just have to adapt to it. And ultimately, it would be people like us that probably would run these things, but it has to be done a little bit more with reality in mind and less Mad Max. I think that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I'm still saving up for my giant petrol container that we can put spikes and flamethrowers on, so it's it's a done deal. My final thoughts on this were very similar to Alan, and I'll just expand on it slightly. There's quite a few comments this evening about people that are less abled and stuff like that, and we used to have the disabled prepper as part of the Fireside, Josh, and what I would say is, it's great if you've got like 5-6 guys who can carry deep fat fryers up mountains like Hawkins and stuff like that, but everyone could bring something to the table. Somebody who is less physically able might be a lot more mentally able, or able to do other skill sets. There's all options, and there's always jobs and roles for people. So don't think you're instantly excluded from things like mags. Mags should be inclusive, like Alan says, and you'll find that with our Discord, with our zones, with our meetups. There's nothing like that. We're not saying you've got to meet us at the top of this mountain and just bring EDC with you and that's it. It's all very inclusive, so get involved at this level. Don't be afraid, and don't let that hold you back. So that's all. There's been 24 comments since I said we finished. Hopefully none of them are questions. If they are, you'll have to get them in for next time. Thank you to Zebra Pep, Rift Security, Miss Worm, all the moderators in the chat there, keeping things going tonight and posting all the links. All my links are below all my videos, so there's no need to promote all that. If you want to see my legs get waxed done out to the thing for the cycle, I'm not going to say any more than that, because I really don't want it to happen.
We do.
Other than that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all again on another Fireside. Goodbye.
Round the fire, warm and bright, stocked up food for the night. Got our plans set in gold for the days when it's cold. Tools and gear stacked up high in the cabin we reside. listening to the winds howl, prepping for the morning's prowl. At the purpose fireside we stay, ready for that fateful day. Stories shared and hearts alight, round the fire every night. Water stored in jugs and tins, bunkered down through thick and thin. Maps and routes all drawn and laid, preppers live unafraid. At the purpose fireside we stay, ready for that fateful day. Stories shared and hearts alight, round the fire every night.